Hey everyone, Thomas from masteringexplained.com here. Today it's time for another part of the Let's Master series, and we're gonna master one track by Ludde Lorentz, and it's called Truth Hurts. So let's have a look at it. Okay, so here we have the track. I have prepared the project, and I'm going to begin by listening to it and hear what we have. As usual, it's not going to be a tutorial per se. It's going to be more of a view into how I do when I master a track. And I'm going to start by listening to the track, so let's do that. Why do we keep falling apart? I don't want to lose you. Baby, there is something you should know. You can always turn if you don't want to show. Emotions last longer than another day. Truth hurts. Why is every day other than the one before? It will never be if you're walking on one. It is really killing me, but I just need to say truth hurts. Alright, that's a really good mix, I think. This is going to be great fun. So I have some ideas already how I want this to sound, so I think I will dive straight into trying to get those things in place. And what I'm aiming for now is to have a bit more sparkle, a bit more excitement around the mix. I think the mix as it is sounds very good, so I don't really want to make too big changes to this. This should sound like it does, but I think the presentation of it needs a bit more sparkle, a bit more excitement around the edges, so to speak. So we'll see how we can do that. Now that it's dark, it has been cold for a while, and the fall has been... Okay, so I think I have a pretty good sound now. The mix sounds very good, so there's really not much to do. So let's have a look at what has been done so far. Okay, so there are mainly four things I'm doing right now. First of all, I'm doing some EQing here in the equilibrium, and it's a slight lift at 6 kilohertz. It's a very wide filter, and it's small lift, 0.6 dBs at 6 kilohertz with a wide Q value, 0.5 Q value. So that's just to bring out some clarity in the vocals and make everything sound a bit brighter. And I've also reduced a bit around 7K with a fairly narrow filter. I felt it was a bit harsh in the cymbals especially. So that's the EQ part. There's also another EQ, which we'll get to in a moment, but that's the first thing that's happening. And then I'm using a compressor, and this is the, I showed you one in the last video. It's our own compressor. We have developed it by ourselves, but it's not working very much. We can see if in the louder parts we have about 1 dB of action, and it's only blended to 30%, so we get very little compression, but it adds a bit clarity to especially the transients in the drums, and makes the low end sound a bit tighter. That's what I'm using this compressor for. So it shouldn't really alter the dynamics too much. It should just add a bit of stability and clarity to the mix. And then I have this mysterious button named X, and what this does is that it enables two plugins in series. First, the TG mastering plugin from Waves, which is it's a very nice analog sounding plugin. It's one of the few analog modeled plugins that I use. It's this one and the black box. Those are the analog derived plugins that I use. And what I'm doing is I'm using the EQ. So here I add some more high end using the shelf filter, and also a bit of low end. So we get a little bit more of oomph from this one, and a bit more of the highest detail from this one. And I also have the compressor section enabled, and this is not doing very much either. It's It adds a bit of roundness and clarity to the transients, which I like. I really like this compressor for that purpose. And then it goes into this this plugin, which is a tube saturator emulator of some kind. And I keep the mix quite low, and I don't add that much of character from this, but it gives a bit of edginess to the sound and a bit of fullness in the low end, which I like. But it's very subtle. I don't use much of it. It's just a touch to get a bit more excitement into the mix. And then I use this button, BXR, which what it does is that it enables this plugin from Brainworks. And this mellows out the mids, the high mids a bit. Because especially when the saxophone solo starts, it gets a bit hard around 2K or so. So this plugin will filter those frequencies when needed. I like how it sounds, and I have a setting that either it works or it doesn't work. So it's an on-off kind of thing for me. And the last thing I do is a peak limiter, and that's the limitless. And this is set to be quite aggressive. It's a quite aggressive setting. That's usually where I start. I like when I can use the limiter as a sort of refined clipper. And that's probably because I'm a bit old school in that sense. For the first 10 years or so, I was using mainly AD converter clipping in order to achieve loudness. That was one of the best tools to achieve loudness in the early 2000s. And things have evolved, but it's still the general approach I use for limiting. I will try to have the limiter as transparent as possible. And by transparent in this context, I mean do as little as possible to the character of the sound. And that usually means having a quite aggressive peak limiting going on. Because I don't want the overall dynamics to change too much, and I don't want the tonal balance to change too much. So I can use a transparent peak limiting that is approaching clipping, so that I can get that transient clarity that you can get from clipping when peak limiting. But at the same time use the release characteristics of limitless in order to reduce the audible distortion that you also get from clipping. And that's pretty much it. I think it sounds good. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to edit this. So that's it. I will add a region around this. I will have a pre-gap of 0.2 seconds, 200 milliseconds. That's a good pre-gap. And a post-gap, I will try 2 seconds just to see. That's where the next track would end up. And that's good, I think. Let's render it. And there we have it. So what's left to do now is to quality control this. I hope Sofia will be able to listen to this because then I will get her feedback as well. That's really good to have. But hopefully this will be the version we'll send off to the clients, and we'll see what kind of response we get. So I'll be back. Okay, so everyone was happy with the result, and there were no revisions this time. And the single has been released. You will find the links in the description. Go ahead and have a listen and support the artist. And I hope you like this video. Please hit like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And what's left to do now is to have a listen to the before and after. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Now that it's dark, it has been cold for a while, and the fall has been fading in spectrums right out of colors. I lie alone, wide awake with your smile, giving chills in my chest, makes me tolerate.